The Bank of England today made another emergency intervention into the British economy. It's the third time it's been forced to access the calamitous mini-budget. The IMF, meanwhile, said the worst is yet to come for the global economy, warning that Britain faces high inflation for longer than similar economies. Perhaps Liz Truss needs a word with my next guest. Joining me is the billionaire entrepreneur John Caudwell, alongside author and journalist Jenny Cleveland, and Talk TV's political editor Kate McCann. Well, welcome to all you, stellar panel, if ever there was one. John Caudwell, great to see you. As one of the richest, most successful people in the country, what on earth do you make of this basket case of a few weeks we've had with the economy?
Well, it's not just a few weeks, it's a few years, unfortunately, because all the wrong things were done right at the start of the pandemic. And there should have been a lot of different actions taken by Rishi Sunak, first of all. So all of this crisis started way back then. And, of course, the pandemic was a huge challenge to overcome, but there was lots of ways of managing it more shrewdly than we did. And those mistakes have now added to the inflation, which is, of course, also caused by the Ukraine situation and the hyperinflation of energy prices. So the whole lot has come together as a storm, which has not been settled down by Liz Truss.
Well, she's poured a lot of fuel onto the fire.
Absolutely.
With this mini-budget. I mean, many economists I talk to think she's talking complete nonsense and quasi-quarting, that this idea that you can get growth by unleashing all these massive tax cuts without actually any way of funding them, they think is a complete disaster. I mean,
I agree.
With you agree with that?
No, I agree with that. That's not to say I've ever been against borrowing more money, but I wanted to borrow more money to invest in the economy, to grow GDP. If you only borrow the money to put into people's pockets and rely on that feeding through and creating growth, it's not going to work, because all it'll do is create inflation. And, of course, that's where we are now. We're in a desperate situation.
Right. Kate, I mean, I watched Kwasi today in Parliament. I thought he was pretty hopeless, to be honest with you. Every time he veered off his tight script, he just sounded less and less confident. And the problem is, it's not about whether he's confident, it's about other people in the city's confidence in him. And at the moment, there isn't any. In fact, they think things are going to get a lot worse very quickly. And what he's managed to do is make things immeasurably more difficult for this country to get out of soaring inflation.
Yeah, and I think look at what's had to happen. He's had to bring forward his medium-term fiscal report to the end of the month, to Halloween. And at that point...
The Halloween horror.
Well, the Halloween budget. I mean, you couldn't really have chosen a worse date for it, in theory. But what that has to do is a huge amount of work. He has to reassure the markets that he has this covered. And to do that, he says he's going to give long-term plans on things like planning, infrastructure investment. There are 8 of these growth plans. I was speaking to Number 10 yesterday, and they say, well, don't expect to see all of those at the end of the month. That's a huge problem, because if we can't see what his plan is and how he's going to reassure the markets, then they won't necessarily be reassured. And I think his performance in the Commons today is worth highlighting, because actually Kwasi Kwarteng really struggled against his own side. His own MPs, you know, chair of the Treasury Select Committee, former chief whip. These are not rebels. These are people who are inside the camp who are saying, we're not comfortable, we're not happy, you need to reach out and steady the ship. And if you don't, then you'll have some real problems. What
will the trigger point be for a genuine rebellion against Liz Truss and Kwasi Kwarteng?
Well, I think actually what's happening tonight is quite problematic, because Andrew Bailey has made comments saying that what the Bank of England is doing will definitely end on Friday. And that's caused a real problem for the pound already. Now, that's happening as we speak right now. That shows you how jittery markets are, what the confidence is like. Everyone in Parliament has eyes on that. They are all concerned about the long-term damage that's being done here, because when we talk about gilts, what we're talking about is the cost of government borrowing, how much it costs all of us to borrow the money that they're proposing to grow the economy. Now, the IMF today has said, well, yes, the UK's economy will grow, potentially more than we expected, but so will inflation. It'll be running really high, and that's a problem for all of us.